Welcome to the Medical Ancillary Sales Podcast, your number one source for making money in the medical ancillary sector. Mike and Viv bring you the latest information from lab services, pharmacy, diagnostic testing, and so much more. The latest in ancillary services will be right around the corner. Welcoming the hosts of the Medical Ancillary Sales Podcast, here's Mike and Viv.
Hello and welcome to the Medical Ancillary Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bird, joined as always by Vivian Hudson. How you doing, Viv?
I'm great, thanks, Mike. And today it's time for a guest again. So today we've got, who's our guest, Mike?
Well, today we have Brian Faro on, and Brian has a terrific solution in the medication dispensing realm, which I have a lot of personal experience with. And I know there's a lot of programs out there that I've been aware of in the past, and I've heard, I've heard some things that maybe some of these programs aren't working as good as claimed. And I've looked into Brian's program. We are, to be fully transparent, we are just getting started with it, so I don't have a lot of personal experience with it, so I'm learning also. But Brian's been in this business for a while, and I like their program, at least on paper. So I wanted to give Brian an opportunity to tell everybody about the program that you guys offer for physicians. So Brian, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So just to give you a little bit of an overview about the company, Advanced RX, we do two things. We do in-office dispensary, which is solely focused on work comp patients as well as personal injury. In that case, the doctors are actually dispensing in the office directly to their patients as they're walking out the door. They're entering all this information into our platform. What we then do is all the billing and collections directly with the work comp carriers or work strictly with the lawyers on any of the personal injury litigated cases. Really what it is, it's a super ancillary opportunity for those physicians that are seeing some level of work comp patients. Typically our types of doctors that we work with heavily are your orthopedic, pain, podiatry, any of those doctors that typically see a higher volume of work comp. And then what our goal is to do through the billing and collections is to provide 70% of that reimbursement back to those physicians. Okay. So there is quite a good revenue stream or ancillary revenue stream for the doctors to leverage our services. Again, right now we have about 220 dispensaries across 35 states. There are some states though that we have found that, it's not legal by regulation. It's not legal to do in-office dispensing. In those cases, what we've been able to do is bring doctors into what I like to call an association, into our memberships under an MSO or Managed Service Organization model, by which they can send scripts. Now, the scripts that we will receive in that regard are for work comp, they're for PI, as well as we can support their commercial patients under this pharmacy service that we're offering. So as I stated, in-office dispensing for the states that allow it. If they're not allowed, states like Texas, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Utah, then we typically look to bring them into our association, allow those doctors to still leverage our service, and then still receive an ancillary revenue stream. The way that the pharmacy services pays out their ancillary revenue is through a quarterly dividend. So again, leveraging the dispensing or the pharmacy services, we pay back through quarterly dividends to those associates, those doctors that are in our association for leveraging our pharmacy services. Or if they're doing in-office dispensing because they do have work comp and PI patients and it's a legal state, then we would do that in office. In that case, we're providing 70% of the reimbursement back to the doctors. We charge a fee of 30% for our billing, collections, the overall management of the program.
So this is, you have an MSO model available for for physicians in states where it's not legal to dispense. Is that what you're saying?
That's true. And even in some cases, some of the doctors, for whatever reasons, do not want to have any medications on site. They prefer to just send the script down the street. In those cases, we still want to have a service for those doctors. So should in-office dispensing not make sense for whatever reason because you don't want to have the medications on site, then we could still bring them into our MSO or our pharmacy and leverage our pharmacy services so that they can still, in fact, gain some bit of ancillary revenue.
And is that only so could you break down the different insurances? Does this work for federal payers, or is this only for, for commercial and work comp PI?
Sure. Yeah. Under our MSO model, we do not bring in any federal patients into the mix. We stay away from any of the STAR compliance concerns that we have. But it is for commercial, work comp, or PI. And then it just comes down to whether or not those doctors want to keep their in-office dispensing for their work comp and PI. In a lot of cases, we've brought doctors in through our dispensing services. They've been leveraging Advanced RX for a number of years. They were looking for additional benefits that we could bring to them. So in some cases, they're doing in-office dispensing for work comp and PI, but they're also part of our pharmacy services through our MSO model. And in those cases, they're basically leveraging across all of their commercial, their work comp, and their PI, some level of ancillary revenue. And then on the federal side, we do not support those scripts in this particular model. We do have pharmacy services, though, for those practices that are very large, that want to have their own pharmacy. And in those cases, we're talking typically anywhere from 5 to 15 doctors in a large practice, very high volumes, a minimum of typically we like to see around 5,000 scripts a month. And in that case, we come in as the management company. We will deploy a pharmacy for the benefit of that practice. The doctors, in essence, own their own pharmacy. We are simply the management company. But again, that's with fairly large practices with high volumes. In that case, those types of pharmacies are STAR compliant. It's usually a group of physicians under one roof, one tax ID, and they're the owners of that pharmacy. In that case, we are able to support federal, which is Medicaid, Medicare, TRICARE, all of their commercial as well as their work comp. And we're interested always in evaluating those types of practices. And then we really try to give direction on this. I mean, we've had a number of practices who have come to us thinking they had the volumes that would support their own pharmacy. We've been doing this for a number of years now, 7 to be exact. And we know what would make a profitable pharmacy for those doctors. But should their own pharmacy not make sense, we'd be very clear about that. We would present the MSO model to where they can still benefit from leveraging our pharmacy services and receive some ancillary revenue on the other side. It really comes down to us really getting in and talking to the practices, getting a good understanding of the group, the types of payer mix they have, the volumes that they have, and then we put them into where we think the best service fits for them, whether it's around dispensary services or pharmacy services.
So, Brian, what about the cost to get into this? So whether it's just the dispensing only, so you've got a practice that specializes in personal injury, what's the cost for them to get started, and then the cost versus getting into the MSO model, and how long does it take for each one of those to get signed up?
Yeah, thanks for that question. That's a good question. So on the dispensary side, there is no out-of-pocket expense to the doctor. So in essence, what we are doing is, though the doctor is responsible for the purchasing of all their medications, we buy on their behalf. We have a fairly large supply chain with over 220 dispensaries. Therefore, we're actually buying through the repackager on behalf of the doctor. We're having those meds shipped directly to our cabinets within the physician's office. We're then doing the billing and collections. So on a monthly basis, when they receive their reporting on the dispensing side, it will show all of the dispensing activity, what was billed, what was collected, less the cost of the medication. So that's where we've deferred the cost of the medications for the doctors and take it directly out of their reimbursements. On the pharmacy services side, which is the MSO specifically, there is a fee to become part of the association, which is a $6,000 initial investment, which is then for the term of their time that they spend with Advance RX, leveraging our MSO services. And in that situation, again, they're providing us with, in many cases, their work comp, their PI, as well as their commercial scripts, again, under the MSO model, no federal. And then we pay them out a quarterly dividend based on gross margin of that particular group of investors. There's one other point I'd add to that in the MSO model, it's always stated from a lot of the doctors, well, what if I'm really involved and I'm actually ensuring that all my scripts are coming your way, yet there's other doctors that are in there. And since it is managed from an investment standpoint, that everybody that's part of that MSO receives an even dividend on a quarterly basis. In those cases, we give the rights to the doctor to vote out non-performers. So I always tell doctors, if you're not interested in participating, you want to come in, think that you're just going to make the quarterly dividend without the participation, we request that they just don't get involved, because at that point, they're going to end up typically getting voted out by their peers, not by Advanced RX management, but by their peers that are part of that same association that just would like to see everybody contributing.
Brian, how long has this model been around, and how long have you guys been active doing this? I mean, we do hear a lot about a lot of different ancillary programs, and there are a lot that pop up, and then they look great on paper, and then they're gone before you know it.
Yeah, good point. So speaking specifically to the dispensary side, that's really where the company grew up. I mean, we really started out as a work comp billing and collections company built into a dispensary company. That's been going on for 7 years. We've moved into the pharmacy side of the business simply because our doctors started to push us that way to bring more services to them. And then, of course, those were typically physician-owned pharmacies. So we were building these out for the pharmacies or for the physician practices. And then we morphed this MSO model that's been around for a number of years. Typically, it was more around the DME, implants, hardware, those types of things that were doctors were actually becoming part of an association. We, from the pharmacy side, have moved into this. It's been about 1.5 years now. And I will say this, that the membership has grown tremendously. I mean, a lot of the doctors came from our dispensing side of the business, wanted to get additional services, saw the benefit of, instead of sending a script down the street to CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, they could actually send it to a pharmacy, one of our pharmacies through our network, and receive a dividend on that. So that's kind of taken us into this direction. Now, it's fair to say that it's going to continue to grow. What we're finding that is kind of a benefit to us too. Even doctors that are interested in their own pharmacy and may warrant that, we like to bring them into this MSO model to where we really get to work with them and see the types of volumes that they can produce. They're able to get on board and do this fairly quickly while we look to evaluate their volumes, their payer mixes, and then should we decide to build them their own pharmacy and allow them at that point to then transition out, sell back that share of the pharmacy, and then have the value of their own pharmacy. In that case, we've done a great job of really qualifying together and made sure that it was going to be a good business decision for all parties involved. We really don't try to ever push the pharmacy, especially a physician-owned pharmacy, on any group unless we really get a good understanding of those volumes, and more importantly, not just the volumes, but that they could actually drive their patients to their own pharmacy. And if they can't, that's fine. We just put them into the MSO model. They're part of the association, and so long as they're participating, there are benefits to be had by those doctors.
Well, Brian, this seems like a fantastic program. I know we are very anxious to get started and put some of our own doctors into it. I've already spoken to a couple of physicians who I know who definitely expressed interest, so I'm very excited about it, and I want to thank you for getting on today.
Oh, I appreciate the time.
Right.
Thanks a lot, Brian.
Thanks, everyone, and if you want to contact Brian or you want to contact us, email us at ancillarypodcast@gmail.com. Thanks, everyone.